Good evening, warm welcome to the Republic of Philosophy. I'm Max, and last time I read some Hegel. We started on the preface in the Miller edition on page 1, and I read the first 5 aphorisms of Hegel's Phenomenology. So now I'm going to read the 6th in the preface. So you can read along, and if you have any thoughts or anything, feel free to put them in the comment section. To lay down that the true shape of truth is scientific, or what is the same thing, to maintain that the truth has only the notion as the element of its existence, seems, I know, to contradict a view which is in our time as prevalent as it is pretentious, and to go against what that view implies. Some explanation, therefore, seems called for, even though it must, for the present, be no more than a bare assertion. Like the view that it contradicts, if namely the true exists only in what, or better, as what, is sometimes called intuition, sometimes immediate knowledge of the absolute, religion or being. Not at the center of divine love, but the being of the divine love itself. Then what is required in the exposition of philosophy is, from this viewpoint, rather the opposite of the form of the notion. For the absolute is not supposed to be comprehended. It is to be felt and intuited. Not the notion of the absolute, but the feeling and the intuition of it must govern what is said and must be expressed by it. If we apprehend, aphorism 7, by the way, if we apprehend a demand of this kind in its broader context and view it as it appears at the stage which self-conscious spirit has presently reached, it is clear that spirit has now got beyond the substantial life it formerly led in the element of thought, that it is beyond the immediacy of faith, beyond the satisfaction and security of the certainty that consciousness then had, of its reconciliation with the essential being, and of that being's universal presence both within and without. It has not only gone beyond all this into the other extreme of an insubstantial reflection of itself into itself, but beyond that too. Spirit has not only lost its essential life, it is also conscious of this loss and of the finitude that is its own content. Turning away from the empty husks and confessing that it lies in wickedness, it reviles itself for so doing, and now demands from philosophy not so much knowledge of what it is, as the recovery through its agency of that lost sense of solid and substantial being. Philosophy is to meet this need not by opening up the fast-locked nature of substance and raising this to self-consciousness, not by bringing consciousness out of its chaos to an order based on thought, nor to the simplicity of the notion, but rather by running together what thought has put asunder, by suppressing the differentiation of the notion and resorting the feeling of essential being. In short, by providing edification rather than insight. The beautiful, the holy, the eternal, religion and love are the bait required to arouse the desire to bite, not the notion, but ecstasy, not the cold march of necessity in the thing itself, but the ferment of enthusiasm. These are supposed to be what sustains and continually extends the wealth of substance. In keeping with this demand is the strenuous aphorism 8, almost overzealous, with the frenzied effort to tear men away from their preoccupations, with the sensuous from their ordinary private affairs, and to direct their gaze to the stars, as if they had forgotten all about the divine, and were ready like worms to content themselves of dirt and water. Formerly, they had a heaven adorned with a vast wealth. Whoops. It's just a book. Oh well. Formerly they had a heaven adorned with a vast wealth of thoughts and imagery. The meaning of all that is hung on the thread of light by which it is linked to that heaven. Instead of dwelling in this world's presence, men looked beyond it, following this thread to another worldly presence, so to speak. The eye of the spirit had to be forcibly turned and held fast to the meaning of this world, and it has taken a long time before the lucidity which only heavenly things used to have could penetrate the dullness and confusion in which the sense of the worldly things was enveloped, and so make attention to the here and now as such, attention to what has been called experience, an interesting and valid enterprise. Now we seem to need just the opposite. Sense is so fast rooted in earthly things that it requires just as much force to raise it. The spirit shows itself as so impoverished that, like a wanderer in the desert craving for a mere mouthful of water, it seems to crave for its refreshment only the bare feeling of the divine in general. By the little which now satisfies spirit, we can measure the extent of this loss. Aphorism 9. The modest complacency in receiving or this sparingness in giving does not, however, benefit science. Whoever seeks mere edification and whoever wants to shroud in the midst of the manifold variety of his earthly existence and of thought, in order to pursue the indeterminate enjoyment of this indeterminate divinity, may look where he likes to find all of this. He will find ample opportunity to dream up something for himself. But philosophy must be aware of the wish to be edifying. Aphorism 10. Still, less must this complacency, which abjures science, claim Still, less must this complacency which abjures science claim that such rapturous haziness is superior to science. This prophetic talk supposes that it is staying right in the center and in the depths, looks disdainfully at determinateness, and deliberately holds aloof from notion and necessity as products of that reflection, which is at home only in the infinite, in the finite. But just as there is an empty breath, so too there is an empty depth. And just as there is an extension of substance that pours forth as a finite multiplicity without the force to hold the multiplicity together, so there is an intensity without content, one that holds itself in as a sheer force without spread. And this is in no way distinguishable from superficiality. The power of spirit is only as great as its exasperation, its depth only as depth as it dares to spread out and lose itself in exposition. Moreover, when this non-conceptual substantial knowledge professes to have sunk the idiosyncrasy of the self in essential being, and to philosophize in a true and holy manner, it hides the truth from itself by spurning measure and definition instead of being devoted to God. It merely gives free rein both to the contingency of content within it and to its own caprice. Such minds, when they give themselves up to the uncontrolled ferment of the divine substance, imagine that by drawing a veil over self-consciousness and surrendering understanding, they become the beloved of God, to whom he gives wisdom and sleep. And hence, what they in fact receive and bring to birth is their sleep. Nothing but dreams. And that is aphorism 6 to 11 in the Preface for the Phenomenology of Spirit by Hegel. And next time we'll start with aphorism 11. Take care.